Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder. Sorry for your face because of all the face palms that you gave yourself with the intro, but that is just one part of the experience in the Class 3P, aka the TH800 tank destroyer. And this Terminator is really great. It is apparently a South African based vehicle and has, from the outer shape, a lot of similarities with the Reukat. It's an 8x8, it has wheels of course, and the overall hull shape, and where the turret sits, it looks like a Reukat. However, this is in the German tech tree, battle rating 8.7, rank 6 tank destroyer, and you can get this reward, not premium vehicle, when you play the Operation Winter, where it is a 10-star reward. According to the missions, the hardest to get by because of the requirements, right? So this thing is big, it's massive, and it's huge. But also, despite what you saw in the intro, this thing is great fun and surprisingly mobile for quote-unquote despite having wheels. This is more like it should be. And I hope that Gaijin doesn't really screw around with it too much, because at the moment, this thing is great. And huge, as I mentioned. How huge? Let's have a look at the hangar, and you can see that according to the squares, it's almost a square wide and 2 squares long. And it also looks pretty tall. How tall? This tall. Yep, that's a mouse. It's almost identical. Height, width, length, it's almost at just look. On the other hand, never have I seen something so big move so fast in War Thunder. It's hilarious and I love it. So without further ado, let's jump into some battle scenes and let's see what this thing can do. So let's start with the armor of the Class 3P, and yeah, you're right, for a vehicle that has the size of the mouse but less than a quarter of the weight, you cannot expect very thick armor, can you? So the tank has 41 tons, which it has to distribute between the gun, ammunition, the power pack, the drivetrain, and then at the end, the armor. And yeah, the thickest part is probably the gun mantlet, which has roughly 150 millimeters of thickness. The side of the turret is 38 millimeters of high hardness rolled armor. The upper glacis is 30 millimeters, but heavily angled at roughly 74 degrees, so quite a lot of bouncing going on there. And then the lower glacis has 29 millimeters of high hardness rolled armor. The side is only 20 millimeters and 10 millimeters, as well as the rear only 20 millimeters and 10 millimeters, and the radiator cover is only 5 millimeters. That's the rear. On top, it's only 10 millimeters, and the weak spots are 5 millimeters, so you're highly vulnerable from the rear and the top, even by aircraft's heavy machine guns, or AP for the 20 millimeters. Same goes for the turret that has 10 millimeters. However, there is a lot of spaced armor going on, and the tank is very empty. Out of the 4 crew members, 3 are in the turret, and the turret has the most protection when it comes to spaced armor. I think it's roughly, depending on where you look at it, effective armor of around about 150 millimeters to 220 millimeters. That is not really saving you from heat or darts, but it lets you look surprisingly tanky for SPA that just think that they can lol pen you from any angle. So this is pretty tanky and pretty survivable as long as the hull break doesn't get triggered by big chemical energy based warheads like rockets or rockets with heat warheads. Where exactly the border is, I don't know, but some shots I survive, others I don't, and there is no real rule to go by it, and Gaijin is constantly screwing around it. But there is so much space, for example, around the driver, that you could fit an entire tank just in there, where the driver sits, and it looks really comfy. Also, the vehicle is quite tall, with all the critical components like ammunition and crew being relatively high, and a lot of people are used to shoot rather low from the side. If you take out a lot of the ammunition, you have 54 rounds for the 105mm GT3 gun. A lot of tanks just pen and do no damage at all. So this is a little trick which the tank goes by, right? So what we have is now a tank that is pretty trolley and tricky. Then we come to the mobility. So for the, as said, 41-ton tank, we have a 786 strong engine, horsepower strong engine, that results in a horsepower to ton ratio of 19.2. For a wheeled tank in War Thunder, that doesn't sound that amazing. Think about other wheeled tanks. However, it seems like the tires are so wide, and maybe the driving model is not completely screwed up, that this tank is actually fast, even on sand. Yes, it suffers in mud, but I understand that, compared to tank tracks, but that it actually moves with a reasonable speed, or actually a good speed, on hard and also medium terrain, like just simply fields and grass and such. That makes the tank really good, and so you actually can reach your top speed of 86 kilometers per hour, which, you know, is pretty good. And you have still 35 kilometers in reverse. Your acceleration is good. Your armor is trolley. What about the firepower and the gun handling? Well, basically you are again like the Radkampfwagen 90. You have a 105mm GT3 cannon, which looks like an L7, behaves like an L7, smells like an L7, and tastes like an L7. At least that's what I heard from all the dead enemies. So 54 rounds of ammunition. I think you're good to go with 20, which increases, as I said, your survivability by quite a bit. And yeah, you have also two 7.62 Browning MG4 machine guns with a lot of ammunition and a lot of smoke launchers. You have a reasonable gun handling of 8 degrees of gun depression, and I think 15 degrees of gun elevation, so that is a bit limited, but it's not the end of the world. You have a reload of 6.7 seconds, which is fairly standard, a turret rotation speed of 25 degrees per second, which is also decent, and 5 degrees per second gun elevation speed, which is just a touch better than the World War II standard of 4.5 degrees. So there is nothing wrong with it. The stabilizer also is pretty good. It stops only working at very high speed, so above 70 kilometers per hour roughly. And you have no thermal imaging, but night vision. However, when you then are in a night battle, you're not competitive, let's make no mistake. So you're not completely blind as a bat, but yeah, everybody that has thermal imaging, and let's face it, that's the majority of your opposition at this point, they have an easier time in night battles. What about the ammunition? Well, you have your standard L7 package. You have the DM12 stock heat FS with 400mm of penetration at any distance, 1173 meters per second muzzle velocity. As a tier 1 upgrade, you have the choice between the DM502 hash round, 127mm, against any angle and any distance, with only 732 meters per second muzzle velocity. That is pretty decent to lob the shell over ridge lines or into commander's hatch, whatever. So always have a few of them with them. Or, which at this state of the stock round, the DM23 APFSDS, which is much more practical. 1455 meters per second makes it easy to aim, as it is typical for APFSDS. 337mm against 0 degrees angles of impact at point blank range, and still very good positive normalization. At 60 degrees of angle of attack, we have 195mm of penetration, so roughly 200. That is pretty good. For an 8.7 tank destroyer that has this mobility and this trolley survivability. So then we come to the tier 4 DM33. APFSDs. Same muzzle velocity as the DM23 of 1455 meters per second and 408 millimeters of penetration. So you basically have the firepower of the Radkampfwagen 90, 0.3 lower in battle rating. Overall, I think the Radkampfwagen 90 is still a touch better, but it's not like one is really bad and the other is just the very best. In fact, I would say that the Class 3P, aka the TH800, is still a Terminator. You know where I get this reference for. No, in all honesty, it's a good tank. It's a fun tank. It is far from frustrating. Yes, I'm still kind of having the headache from playing the T10A, which was an abysmal experience. But this tank, objectively speaking, is very capable, and subjectively speaking, I actually really like it. So, as you can see, this tank can tank quite a bit. It can dish out the damage. It is fast, and I absolutely would love to play this more. Sadly, today I didn't have the time to play it as much as I would love to have to, and I would love to play this on big maps. It's already decent in city fights, so I only can imagine how great of an experience such a vehicle can be on the big version of Mostar or Fields of Poland, which I get sadly way too rarely. And in such a tank, this is where this tank would shine. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with this tank, and I would love to play it some more, and I probably will. One final fun fact is that this tank already got introduced with a repair cost of 12,333 silver lines, fully equipped that is. And so that gives you a little bit of a hint that even Gaijin thinks it's so great, even though they give it always the benefit of the doubt as a first introduction into the game. And that's it for me today, so thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give this video a like if it is, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the waves, in the skies, and on the battlefields of War Thunder.